All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to the Strong Life Podcast. I'm here with Jake Zweig, and this is going to be a really unique interview. It's actually been a while since I've done an interview, been doing a lot of Q&A episodes, and I've listened to Jake on several interviews, seen him on a couple TV shows, and he's got an amazing kind of history of success, but we're going to get into how he achieved all that. You were a two-sport athlete at the Naval Academy, which is super rare. I don't even think they allow two-sport athletes anymore at the Division I level. From what I understand, you learned how to write, or you learned how to read and write when you got there.
Yeah, I struggled a little bit when I got into college because I couldn't read or write. So, but you got to find a way to overcome. I tell everybody. I learned how to overcome real adversity through not being able to read and write. It makes it pretty hard to pass tests when you got problems reading. So, I like to tell the story that, I don't look at adversity as adversity. I look at it as a challenge that you have to overcome. And, when I wanted to go to business school, I had to study for this test called the GMAT, which is really hard. And it had a writing section on it. And I practiced my writing for about 2 months. And then I realized that just wasn't going to work. 2 months of practice just wasn't going to get it done. So I said, you know what? Like, I can skin this cat a couple different ways. And I just memorized 3 essays out of the Princeton Review book, word for word. And then I picked the best 2 on the writing test on the test and got a 5.5 out of 6. And, it was what it was. It was about 2 months of pain to memorize 2 essays word for word. But at the end of the day, I got where I wanted to go, and that was University of Michigan for business school. So, I don't look at it. I don't look at adversity as adversity. I just look at it as a challenge. And, it's painful most of the time, though. I will tell people that. A lot of people want to overcome adversity with luck and the lottery and stuff like that. And every time I've been faced with adversity, it just takes a massive amount of work to grind it out and get out of that hole.
Yeah, if we look at kind of the way things are now, the things that are marketable, it tends to be what is the shortcut? What is, the 12 weeks to this, the 6 weeks to that? And I did some research, and I had heard about you through other guys in the SEAL community, and was inspired by a lot of your interviews that I had heard before and read. And I saw just a track record of somebody who took the challenges and kind of, like you're saying, harness the tough times to your benefit. So I look back and saw you were a state champ wrestler in high school, then go to the Naval Academy for football and wrestling, which is, I'm going to really want to hear about that. That sounds really unique because most basically football season runs into at least 6 weeks of wrestling season. So I haven't heard of a guy doing 2 sports at the Division I level for probably over a decade now. And then you became, I think, lieutenant in the SEAL teams, and you're at the you've been to several colleges coaching college football. So it's like one thing after another. You're attacking, and I want to kind of hear about what you do when. I mean, you talk about when things are challenging, you just put your head down and do the work. But where was the time where you were challenged and it took more than just hard work? I also had read that, like, buds wasn't that brutal for you. Like, it wasn't like this thing that broke you down, which you just don't hear that. You don't hear that. So what has challenged you? What has made you, I guess, look like an actual human?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people say, you just have a different perspective, right? So my perspective on life is a lot different than somebody that's had, a life where things haven't been as hard as they have been for me. And I'm not saying that I've had a hard life. I've just had some hard obstacles that I've had to overcome. I tell everybody, when I got to SEAL training, they had just graduated 2 classes of over 80 kids, a class, 80 SEALs. And so I stopped training because I wanted to go there as out of shape as possible because I wanted to be as hard as possible. That's kind of the messed up mentality, right? Like, oh, Buds is getting easy. Well, I better go out of shape so it can be a little bit harder. Well, I tell this story. When I first showed up, I just came off the USS Merrimack, did 2 years at sea on a great oiler out of Norfolk. I took 2 months to train, and in the first week, I was running up in Norfolk at a buddy's house, and I just said, you know what? I called Margaret, the detailer. I said, hey, can I go to Bud's tomorrow? She's like, yeah, no problem. Just report when you want to. So I literally loaded up my truck, drove out to SEAL training, and showed up 2 days later. And we had a first 4-mile time run on the beach. Well, I just told you I really hadn't done any physical conditioning since wrestling for the All-Navy wrestling team in 96. And this is October of 97. So we're talking about like a good 18 months since I've last done some physical activity. And I barely finished the 4-mile timed run. Almost got heat stroke and came in at a whopping 38 minutes and 50 seconds. I quickly realized that it was going to take some extra work for me to get in shape. So, I tell everybody, I didn't look at it like, oh man, I'm in trouble. I immediately went to 2 of the fastest runners in my class. I got a speed workout that I did Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights after SEAL training. So after SEAL training was done, me and a good buddy of mine, Clint Bruce, was a football player at the Naval Academy. He was out of shape too. So they would beat us on the bicycles after our 16 hours of working out in a day, or 14 to 16. They'd beat us on the bikes for 45 minutes, and then I'd go out and do a speed workout at night. And I tell everybody I got there in October. I didn't class up until January, and I could swim really well when I got there, so that was a plus. But, I spent 2 months trying to get in shape running-wise, and I barely made the cutoff to pass the first couple first phase runs. And then it really just depended on the weather conditions and whether or not we got to run on the hard packed sand or we got to run on the soft packed sand, whether or not I passed. So, I just talk about it like I had guys in my class that couldn't run. They didn't want to come run with me. They didn't make it. I did. That's just how it goes. I wouldn't say, I don't ever want to say that Buds was easy, but I have a different mentality than most. I did enjoy it. Like I enjoy the physical hardship of Buds. It was fun. It was fun going back to your roots as a man and being in that environment. It really was.
Well, I work with a lot of high school athletes, and a lot of the people listening are coaches as well, coaching a lot of high school athletes. And the big thing is that this is like the soft generation. And then when I look at it, I say, well, that generation is raised by men that are my age, your age, maybe a little bit older, maybe in their late 40s, early 50s. What did your upbringing look like that got you to love hard work? Because I look at I look at my son. He just wrote in school. He's a 7-year-old, and on Thanksgiving they did a nice poster. It said, "What are you grateful for?" And he said, "I'm grateful that my dad takes me to the gym 3 days a week, and I get to lift weights around teenagers." And there was like a picture of like the pull-up bars. He always goes across them, and when I see that, I learn that like if we teach at a young age that hard work is beautiful, then that's what you know. So I'm wondering, like, what did it like for you? I think you grew up in Washington State, right?
So it's really interesting. I got 3 kids now. I got 3 boys. And, my dad was really inspirational in raising me. And I'm going to say it, he wasn't the best dad, but shoot, he made me who I am. And, I really stepped back and I looked at how did I get to enjoy physical hardship so much and relish in being smart. And when I really look back on it, I call it my subtle manipulation plan for raising kids, right? You subtly introduce them to hard work, and they don't know that you're introducing them to hard work. So right now, I got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-month-old, okay? We started every other day going on walks as a family.
Yeah.
And so, my 4-year-old and my 3-year-old, or my 2-year-old, drags the wagon. He likes to pull the wagon. I take the wagon because I know they're not going to make it because the walk is longer than they're going to make. And the 4-year-old runs or rides his tricycle. And so we started off, they made it a mile. They got in the wagon, we went home. They made it a mile and a quarter, got in the wagon and went home. Made it a mile and a half, they got in the wagon and went home. And so they don't know that I'm physically making them hard. But we went to the woods and we did a mile and 3/4 in the woods, and it wasn't until the end that the 2-year-old was trying to get in the wagon, and the 4-year-old was good until he saw his brother trying to get in the wagon. And I was just like, look, nobody's getting in the wagon. We got 200 yards to go. And so there was a little crying, but I go back to the whole tiger mom and dad upbringing thing in China. You know, they treat their kids kind of harsh growing up. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but my kids are going to know hard work because this generation is crutched by social media, cheat codes on video games, and just the overall wanting to be accepted by the masses. They're crippled by it. I see it with my athletes all the time. You know, I fight through it. I got a bunch of different leadership techniques that I'll use with my guys. But, you know, go back to the upbringing stuff. It's just, you know, I got conditioned at a very early age that you're going to do your chores. And, I mean, for me, there's a 300-foot rock wall in front of my house. It's 5 feet high with rocks between probably 20 and 45 pounds. Every day when I woke up in the summer, there was a list of chores that I had to get done. And when that rock wall was getting built, there was 5 wheelbarrows of rocks that had to get to the job site for my dad to come home from work, driving truck, and stack them rocks up. Well, the first day I took the rocks down there, I was probably 13. I took the rocks down there. I did 5 wheelbarrows that I could do, which were probably quarter wheelbarrow loads. He got home and he got mad. You know, like my dad would yell at you and he'd give you the business. He said, this is BS. This isn't what I asked for. I asked for 5 wheelbarrows full, not a wheelbarrow and a quarter. And I just said, okay. So the next day, I had to make 20 trips. And I made 20 trips all summer until that wall was built. And it's in front of our house right now. You know, it was stuff like that. The other good one that was really psychologically challenging, you get a 24-hour, I grew up on Fort Lewis, Washington, right out, small town in Washington State, Steilacoom, and you get a 24-hour wood permit. So you can cut wood for 24 hours, but you only get 1 day. So all the wood has to be off, and you can only cut fallen trees. So we'd get up at 2 in the morning, we'd go into the woods, we'd start sawing. And I had a hammer, a sledgehammer, a short sledgehammer about that long, and 2 splitting mauls. And my dad would cut, and I would split. At the end of the day, he'd have 4.5 cord, 5 cords of wood done. I would have 25 to 50 pieces. Okay? Now, we'd start at 2 in the morning. We'd cut wood until about probably 3 or 4. In that time, I would take anywhere from 2 to 3 naps. I'd raise my hand. Hey, Pops, I'm tired. He said, go lay down in the truck. I'd lay down. I'd get up. I'd be right back out there. And so I didn't even understand what 24 hours of hard work looked like. I just knew that being covered in wood chips, swinging my little hammer, I was trying to keep up with my Pops. And so he had 4.5 cord over there. I had my little pile over here, but I pulled my weight.
Right.
And that was the one thing, you know, growing up, I always pulled my weight. But the monumental shift happened. And this is a story that, I mean, I can't even believe it happened. So I was wrestling and doing sports early on. I started wrestling about 4, and then I got away from it until came back in the 6th grade. I started wrestling again. So I was undefeated. I lost 1 match as an 8th grader, and so I thought I was the stuff, right? I thought I was as good as it came. And you know, Washington State wrestling is good, but it's not great. So I roll into my freshman year, and my dad had said, you know, you're not very tough. And I was like, man, I'm tough. You know, I'm the man. So I got in my freshman year, And I was one of 3 freshmen to travel on the varsity football team. I did really good in football as a 7th grader, 8th grader, and 9th grade. I'm one of 2 freshmen travel, 3 freshmen, whatever it was. So I roll into wrestling like I'm gonna own this place, and I'm a young, 14-year-old, 15-year-old. I get killed. So I come home one day, and my dad's like, you're not very tough. And I said, yeah. And so he kind of, yelled at me a little bit, and I just said, whatever. So I go to wrestling practice the next day, and all the seniors start beating me up. And so I'm like, hey, this is crazy. Like, now I'm talking about Larry Nelson, Mike Valentine, all these wrestlers, seniors, and they're DDTing me. Big time wrestling was big. 1984, 85, man. It was, they would hold me up and body slam me. They would hold me between 2 people. Larry Nelson was a 190 pounder. I was wrestling, 140. He'd double leg kick me, or they'd hold me down. So this went on every day for about 3 weeks. And so finally, like, I was getting scared to go to wrestling practice. And I didn't like going to wrestling practice because I got beat up for the first 15 minutes. I had a black eye. My ribs hurt. And it was crazy. Like, I was getting destroyed at wrestling practice. And then one day I just said, you know what? Like, I am going to punch the first person in the face I see in the locker room. I'm not even going to let it get to the wrestling mat. So I walked in the locker room, and I can't remember who was in there, Todd Kramer or Larry, and I punched him right in the face. And I just went wild. And then they jumped on me, and I started punching people. And they drugged me out to the mats, and they started to beat me up, and I got away, and I kicked somebody in the head. And so, like, I'm going bananas now. And I said, I don't care what happens today. Y'all gonna start beating me up because I'm gonna give it to you. And every day I come to practice, I'm gonna give it to you. So, it stopped after that day. They didn't mess with me anymore. And so it went on, and it was kind of at that point where I realized that you got to stand up for yourself in this world.
Yep.
There's nobody gonna come and rescue you in times of peril. But to finish that story off, about 15 years ago, I was in the Safeway, and I saw Larry Nelson for the first time since high school. And I said, Larry, hey, man, what's going on? And he was like, hey, Jake, how you doing? And I said, man, it was messed up my freshman year. You guys were beating me to death, man. He goes, ha, that's pretty funny, wasn't it? And I said, hey, man, that wasn't funny. I said, I take offense to that. He said, man, relax. He said, your dad had us beating you up.
Your dad.
I was like, excuse me? He goes, yeah, your dad came up, caught me in the locker room one day, or in the school, called me up to the front of the office. He said, look, my son's really weak, and I need you to beat him up until he gets tough. And Larry was like, what? He goes, yeah, your dad told me. He said, Dad came to school, got me out, So I said, all right. I said, said a couple more words with Larry, and then I proceeded to walk right out the store, didn't buy anything, got in my car, drove home. My dad's sitting in the chair. I said, hey, Pops. I said, I ran into Larry Nelson at the grocery store. He said, how's he doing? I said, he's great. I said, he just told me that you had me beat up as a freshman in high school. He goes, yeah? I said, that's messed up. He goes, no, it's not. It worked.
Yeah.
And, I stepped back and I thought about it, and I was like, I think that's messed up. He goes, you wouldn't have won a state championship if you hadn't got tougher. You weren't tough enough. He said, you worked hard, but you weren't tough. And, that was probably the biggest turning point in my life, where after that, I don't care how big you were, I don't care what the situation was, you weren't going to push me around. And that came in all settings. That came from, administrators at my private school trying to pull my scholarship as a junior and then a senior, and me having the cojones to just say, hey, man, you go ahead and pull my scholarship. I'm already accepted to the Naval Academy. You can do what you want to do with my scholarship. I'm going to go on back to Stillcombe High School and get my degree. You can't stop me from going where I want to go, right? And that is so it manifested itself in a bunch of different directions, but it wasn't always there.
Yeah, it seems like people that are successful had some sort of turning point in their life where they just learned like you're gonna have like if you're gonna stop me, you're gonna have to kill me. Like you learn. I always look back and I say I'm always so grateful to my wrestling coaches. I'm like, man, I learned everything I needed to learn. Not everything, but 90 something percent of what I needed to learn about life was learned in that high school wrestling room.
I mean,
Like how tough they are on you.
shoot, the best life example I've ever had, the best learning experience I've ever had, the thing that I carry with me to this day that drives me every day of my life. I'm wrestling Jeff Amick, 122 pounds, my sophomore year. I'm undefeated, he's undefeated. And we're wrestling. It's a tight match. It's 2-2. And we're going into the third period, 2-2, all the way through the second period, all the way through the third period, 2-2. And I get to the end of the match, and there's like 8 seconds left. And we go out of bounds, and I come back, and I'm like, man, a tie isn't that bad. And I'm on top. And so I get down on top of him, and he reverses me.
Yep.
And I lose in 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And that burned in me so badly that, it's motivated me to this day. Now, the unfortunate thing is I had to wrestle him in the league championships, and he put his arm back to brace, and I broke his whole arm and shoulder. But, at the end of the day, that one loss has propelled me in life farther than any win or victory ever has.
Yeah, we remember those the painful times. It's like you hear these stories. You're so young, and I work with a lot of middle school and a lot of high school kids, and I mean the bottom line is like we're talking about parenting a little bit here, and basically it seems like every stage you've gone through from your childhood to going into Naval Academy, and then you're at Buds, like nobody let you quit. I think young people, like, they don't know. Like, if a parent or like a person of influence just says, like, it's okay to quit, then, like, kids don't know they're going to quit. Like, they got to go. They need somebody that pushes them, that says, you're not quitting. Like, you keep going. My friend, Joe DeSena, have you heard of Spartan Race?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joe owns Spartan Race, and he's like, man, I don't believe in giving people choices. He's like, because he goes, people clearly can't make their own choices because we have people that are 300, 400 pounds walking around. He's like, we need like, a world where it's a dictatorship, where we say no soda, work out every day, do these things. Like, he believes that just people are not capable of making their own decisions. And obviously some are not. And it's like the human food chain, right? Like, people like you are going to be at the top, and then the other people are at the bottom. I don't know, like either on the streets or like barely scraping by and never able to like pull themselves from these little challenges because they quit. They learn to quit, and quitting becomes a habit.
I mean, it's just as easy to quit as it is to succeed, right? And so many people out there today, it's hard. It's hard to be successful. There's a reason everybody doesn't graduate from college. There's a reason everybody doesn't go to business school. There's a reason there's not that many Navy SEALs out there, because it's hard.
Right.
And I tell everybody, you can make a choice early. You can either do the hard stuff right now, or you can fail a lot later. And, in the SEAL teams, we got the best saying, you do it right or again. And pretty soon you learn, like, I'd rather just spend the extra time to do it right than to spend 4 or 5 attempts at doing it wrong and then still having to come back to do it right at the end. These generations coming up right now are crippled by social media, just the ability to have followers and be judged by followers, to be bullied online. You can't just get in a fist fight anymore. It becomes some kind of huge ordeal in a school now. And, I mean, what's really setting our kids up for, and I see it all the time in college athletics, is failure. Kids are failing because they don't want to, we got a bunch of freshmen come in, they're not starting, so they quit.
Right, yep.
And I tell them, I didn't play football my junior year at the Naval Academy.
How come?
Because I had some coaches tell me they would never put me on the football field. So I didn't play football my junior year. I went and wrestled. Got the varsity 167 spot. Wrestled 167 for that year. And then came back out when my coach left and played football at 200 pounds. Well, what I really did was cripple myself. I crippled myself because I went from 245 in football season to 167 and then came back up to 200 for football. I was awesome at 245. I'd have been 260 easy had I played my junior year. But, you know, it's a great lesson. It was a lesson for me. I had to stay focused on the cause, and I couldn't see through the forest. I just had a coach, it was an awful coach, telling me, you'll never play. I had 2 touchdowns, a safety, and 5 sacks in one game in JV, and he told me he didn't care if I scored 100 touchdowns. I'd never see the field.
Why would he say? Why did he not like you?
Because we were awful. We were 1 in 10, 1 in 10. So he felt like if he put anybody on the field that wasn't looking the part, you know, he would get criticized and lose his job.
Yeah.
So, you know, now that I'm in a profession of coaching, I see it all the time.
Right. Football's it's a unique football's such a unique sport where I share a story a lot with people. Like, I'm always shocked at how people keep a football coaching position. When I was in a town, the team went on a 36-game losing streak. So they almost lost for 4 years in a row. So some kids were like almost about to graduate high school, never having experienced winning a football game. That guy kept his job until his uncle was let go. And then it's like football seems to be that old school mentality. So I'd love to hear, you've been at a couple of universities in different parts of the country, and you've been in Texas, New Hampshire, right? Now you're in Ohio. I'd love to hear, you know, what are some of the critical things you feel are helping with the success? I think I had read one thing was really cool was the defense maybe in New Hampshire was ranked like 120 in the country. After a year, they were like 26th. So I'd love to hear what you've done to help those kids.
Yeah, we went and up in New Hampshire. You know, we had some great coaches. Coach Max, a superstar up there, been the head coach a long time. You know, he bleeds blue up there in New Hampshire, and he's really the driving force behind it. You know, I came in, you know, I instituted some of my pass rush techniques, and, you know, I got the D-line rushing the passer. We had, you know, I want to say it was 37 sacks that first season, you know, and then that helped out, man. That really helped alleviate a lot of pressure. Defensive coordinator, we started to bring pressure on first down, which was something they never did there. And, you know, those 2 combinations, we had some really good seniors, Steve Young, Lance Mayhew. We had some good younger guys, you know. So I just, you know, I do every place. I do my job. I do it to the best of my ability, and I aspire my kids to achieve, you know, complete monuments. My new catchphrase now is I build champions for life, because that's really what I do. You know, in all aspects, from academics, teaching a kid how to study, teaching a kid how to be successful, goal setting. You know, one of my biggest achievements thus far is Jared Smith was a true freshman up in New Hampshire, wanted to go to the NFL. He had a 1.76. You know, I put him under my wing. He did what I asked him to do, and that's the biggest problem with today's youth. They don't want to do what you ask them to do. They want a shortcut. You know, Jared was studying about 7-8 hours a day, starting at 7 in the morning. There were no shortcuts. He studied on Saturday mornings. He studied on Sundays. You know, he ended up graduating with over a 3.0 and got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks to play offensive line.
Nice.
You know, that's just how it is. But when I got him, he had a 1.76. It wasn't even starting on the football team.
So you had him studying in the morning. What else were some of the things you had him do that changed his direction?
I mean, so I follow an AGP, which is an academic game plan. You know, basically your day's mapped out from 6 in the morning until 10 at night when you go to bed.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jared, I have a thing where I make all my guys study in the library. So they'll have a seat in the library, that's theirs. So when I come and study check them, you know, class checking's one thing, but I study check them. So I know from their schedule exactly where they're supposed to be and when they're supposed to be sitting at that table studying, and I'll go in and see what they're doing, you know, and that tells a kid it's important. When coach comes in and finds you in the library at your seat, and then takes the time to go through, what are you studying? How are you studying it? Let me see your notes. Are your notes good? Are those good notes or the bad notes? Where are the expounded notes? Where have you taken what you learned in class today and written more to it?
Yep.
And so, you're basically teaching a kid how to be successful in a college environment. And, you're setting him up for life, because when you go to a workplace, you got to do the same thing. I tell all my kids, it's big now. They want earrings. They want wild hair. They want dreadlocks. They want the full beard. And I tell them, I said, all that stuff is great. Like all my players here at Philly, we have this awesome thing. We bring back all the alumni in the spring, and we have an alumni dinner. So all the business alum come back. And we're in, there's 5 Fortune 100 companies here in Findlay in a small town. So we got some very successful alumni. And, all my juniors and seniors had a heart attack last year when I said, you better have a haircut, you better be clean shaven. And we had a kid, full dreadlock, or not dreadlocks, flowing blonde hair, looked like a Viking. And he was like, Coach, I don't want to cut my hair. I said, maybe you didn't understand me. Like, it's not really an option. But I got a job. I said, you can make all the excuses you want. I said, you're not going to miss an opportunity at this dinner because your hair looks like that.
Yeah.
And so they all came and they cut their hair, and everybody trimmed everything up, and they weren't real happy with it. But then a couple guys got job interviews and got internships. And, we got guys coming out right now. Chris Reaper, who was the offensive player of the year in the GLIAC, the offensive lineman of the year in the GLIAC, is walking into a $75,000 a year job where he's interned the last 3 summers. So it's real opportunities for real money, and the kids don't get it yet. So, it's little things like that where, if you just listen, I could take you to the promised land real easy. I got the connections up the chain in business, in the military. I can get you anywhere you want to go, but you got to listen, and then you got to put in some work.
Yeah, those little details I found are huge. I always try to share with my kids. I go, I would say when I was at Lehigh, I go, these little things like the guy who was always there 10 minutes early and stayed after 10 minutes late, we knew we could count on him. The one who always showed up with his shoelaces untied and no t-shirt on, like you knew, like, when it was push comes to shove and the going got tough, the cards were stacked against him. Like those little things, they added up. Have you found any difference in the kids from Texas to New Hampshire to Ohio? Also, those kids are coming from other areas, but New Hampshire's kind of like the farmland. Ohio and Texas are really a mix of everything, kind of like New Jersey. New Jersey's like 10 minutes the beach, the other 10 minutes the city, the other 10 minutes the hood, the other 10 minutes like middle America. So I found that like some of the kids that came from like the simple life, like the farm and the working class, they understood, put the head down, get my hands dirty, do the work. So what are you doing with like these different kind of kids and kids that you see potential in, but that the bottom line is like potential is BS. The reality is the work you do. So what's the way you're able to work with these different kinds of kids?
So I tell everybody the same thing. Everybody asks the question, what's the difference between Texas, New Hampshire, Ohio? I tell everybody the same thing. If you got 100 kids, you're going to have the exact same personalities on every team. You're going to have one high-maintenance kid that's really good. You're going to have a couple kids that are high-maintenance that aren't good. Texas was no different than New Hampshire was. New Hampshire's high-maintenance kids were all Americans, but it's a different type of high-maintenance up there. Coach Mack runs a tight ship. You're going to know how to work hard up there. Texas, same kind of deal. The kids aren't any different. You're always going to have some kids from the hood. You're always going to have some kids from the farmland, some middle class, some upper class, some lower class kids. So it's always the same mix. This team is no different than any other team I've been on. We got a kid on our team, Nate Harris, who ran the fastest 100 time in Ohio. Took a scholarship to Indiana, didn't make it. Went to JUCO, didn't make it. Came here, was on a quick path to not making it, right? And I took him under my wing a little bit because, he's got all the talent in the world to play on Sunday. But he's never had above a 2.0, ever. So, 2 weeks ago, he got a 40 on his first algebra test. And I brought him in, and we worked on algebra for about 2 hours. And so I'm really good in math and science. I just said, look, man, I was like, there's patterns to all this stuff. The numbers are always the same: 2, 4, 6, 12, 8. They can't make the numbers work if they're not kind of in line. Threes, nines, sixes, 12s again. I said 18 sometimes. I said, so we worked on it. And not because of me, but because he wants to. He started putting in a lot more effort. And so, he took an algebra test, the second algebra test. He got a 90 on the test. Okay. Well, let me say this. He got an 85. Okay. He scored a 90 on the test, but he was late for the test, and the teacher knocked off 5 points. And so it was a great teaching moment. I said, look, man, you just got your first A on a test ever. I said, but you were late to class.
Yeah.
I said, you need to go back to that teacher and you need to figure out how you're going to make up those 5 points.
Nice.
And so it's examples like that where, he's listening. He understands this is really his last chance to make a shot at it. And, he's doing what he needs to do. And I'm not saying there won't be any hiccups. I'm hoping he has some good grades when he comes in 2-3 range, maybe 2-5, because then he'll understand the confidence. And my other catchphrase with all my guys is you're not smarter. You're just working harder. So don't think that you're getting good grades because all of a sudden you got smart. No, you're getting good grades because you're working hard.
Putting in the work. What with your background and like you talking about how you were 245 pounds and then 167, like you're obviously a believer in the physical training. So what are some things that you maybe believed in back then that you still believe in now? But I mean, you're also at the university, so they all have strength coaches. So, but I'd love to hear your take on just training in general and maybe even a little bit about what your training looks like now.
I mean, I'm pretty broke up now. They wanted to replace my shoulders a couple years ago, so I'm real limited. I ride the bike. I just got off the bike. I try to ride the bike a couple times a day. I'm really limited in what I can do physically. My big thing, though, is aerobic conditioning for athletes. I just believe this generation's out of shape.
Yeah.
And my offensive, defensive lines, they're always out of shape. I don't care what you say, they're out of shape, And
Yeah.
no one wants to hear when I say they need to do 30 minutes of aerobic conditioning a day. Everybody wants to do short sprints and, well, you only run 10 yards in football. I'm like, yeah, I know, but they're out of shape. So they don't have any recovery time. So, that's my main thing. I'm a big pull-up guy. I think all the big guys, in defensive line, it's all about being able to pull more weight, not push it. My strength coach here, Chad Wagner, is awesome. That's all, we do pull-ups. So, I got a big kid, 360 pounds,
Damn.
and I challenge him every day to a pull-up competition. And right now it's 4-1, and he's on half pull-ups. So he does a half pull-up. I got to do 4, but I'm still beating him because he can only do two half pull-ups right now. But
right.
My goal is to get him to do 1 pull-up. And then we get 1, we'll get 2 and 3. And, he's 360 pounds. When he can start doing 4 or 5 pull-ups, he's going to be able to snatch people off their feet.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I just say, my other big catchphrase or kind of life lesson is you got to do extra. If you're not grinding extra out every day, if you're not making those extra phone calls as a coach, if you're not getting in those extra schools, you're not going to make it. The kids today want to do what's at practice, and that's it. And all the great ones I had, Vernon Davis at Maryland, Sean Merriman, Brian McNally up at New Hampshire, all the great ones do 2 or 3 hours extra a day. And that's what they do. And, you talk about a Kobe Bryant just retired. Kobe's out there, shooting 1,000 shots a day. Michael Jordan, 1,000 shots a day. That takes hours.
Yeah.
Great catchphrase from Stephon Curry. I don't take 500 shots a day. I make 500 shots a day.
Yeah.
That's the type of effort that it takes to be a guy that can win a national championship or, in Stephon Curry's case, the dang NBA championship by just raining threes down on people.
I think when somebody wins, we're never like shocked looking at their work ethic. Here and there, some people get by cutting corners, but they're very rare, and that does catch up to them.
I'll say this: they might win Little League cutting corners,
yes,
but they're not winning something big. I mean, I
true.
do a lot of Dan Gable stuff.
Yep.
So I got Dan Gable's book, and I'll cut sections out, and You know, he's got some incredible stories in there
Lo-
about,
love his
you know,
books.
yeah, just how he made people better just by being around him.
Yeah.
He, you know, another good one is the Cane Mutiny, about the Miami Hurricane football program. I mean, there's some life-changing stories in there where guys chained people to refrigerators. Yeah, no lie. I mean, they had a guy in their room. They basically just chained the refrigerator closed. They made him run every morning extra. You know, made him into an All-American, and now, you know, Cortez Kennedy is named All-Pro defensive lineman. But when he got there, you know, all the seniors took him under. They said, "Man, you can help us win championships here. Not like this, though. If you move in with us, we'll take care of you."
Right. Winning is like this habit. The Cornell wrestling coach said, he goes, the reason why, we're successful is because every Friday we go bowling together. He goes, every Saturday it's movie night together. He goes, we don't party. We don't have frats. And I think I read somewhere that you don't drink alcohol. Like you don't even mess with that stuff, which is that's rare because you come from the SEAL teams, and a lot of those guys are known for being able to live hard, not just train hard and handle hard living. Like they could party hard and handle that stuff. So it's interesting to hear that you don't even touch it.
Well, I mean, you know, it's an easy solution. If you're 120 pounds and you're fighting every weekend with your boys, you can't be drunk. And
Right.
my dad was an alcoholic. He passed now, but he was alcoholic, and I just, you know, I saw how he carried himself in life, and I was just like, I'm never gonna be like that. And so, you know, and we had an open drinking policy in my house. I could drink anytime I wanted to. We had liquor cabinet. I could go in the liquor cabinet. You know, if I wanted to smoke weed, I could smoke weed. There was an open drug policy in my house, and so it really made it easy on me as a kid. There was no mysticism to marijuana. There was no mysticism to alcohol. There was no mysticism to drugs, because I was like, yeah, I got this stuff right in my house. My dad said no problem. So when people were doing cough syrup in 8th grade, and, you know, drinking 40s in ninth grade, and I was like, you guys are stupid. You know, like I'm not doing none of that stuff. One, I'm too small. You know, I got asthma. I value my ability to win in athletic arenas. All that stuff, all it does is detract from where I'm trying to go. I'm not messing with it. And then, you know, once I got to college, everybody, you know, Naval Academy, they drink. And, you know, I just was like, by that point, I had made up my mind that, you know, it wasn't important to me to be in the social scenes drinking. And I mean, I live hard naturally, you know, and that's the whole thing. And I'm not a zealot about it, you know. We got 2 bottles of champagne sitting in my kitchen. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
I just, you know, it's not part of who I have become or who I ever was. You know, in the SEAL teams, guys used to bang on me a little bit, and then I'd choke them out. You know, I'd choke them out, and then they'd be like, all right, never mind. We won't bang on him about not drinking. Because, you know, I got after the SEAL teams a little bit. So,
What does a day in the life look like for you now? You're a father of three. You're coaching at a Division II university. I think before that, I had read that you had a real good paying job. I know you're still consulting, but you have an MBA. And for those listening, I think an MBA is 60 credits, where a typical master's degree is like 32 or 35 credits. So the MBA is pretty much one of the toughest master's degrees out there. And so I'd love to hear how you apply lessons from life, from SEAL teams, from your upbringing to how you're living today as a father, as a coach.
yeah, I mean, I try to do my best. You do everything you can every day. I get up early. You know, I go to bed late. You know, I'm tired pretty much all the time. That's just how it is. You know, at 44, I'm trying to make it somewhere. I'm trying to make it up to Division I or to the NFL this year.
Yep.
And you're not going to do that by just sitting at home. You know, we're hitting the road tomorrow morning for recruiting. I'm going to get up at 5, drive to my first school. I'll be there by about 7:15. You know, get it in, and then I got 2 weeks straight on the road. You know, I'm going to work probably 15, 16-hour days that whole time. I'm going to keep my phone busy, stay in front of people. So, you know, there's no shortage on hard work, and that's, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you gotta fight through the low times. You know, I'm at a great place here at University of Findlay. It's awesome. I love it. Just got to try to keep moving up, climbing that ladder as best you can. So, and you talked about MBA at Michigan. Every part of my life I've had some situations where I've just done things that other people wouldn't, and that's what it comes down to. At the University of Michigan, I was all jazzed up about getting a job down at Wachovia Securities after the summer. So I had figured out that I needed 27 credit hours to graduate, and called up the business school, and they were like, "You can't take 27 credit hours in one semester." And I said, "Well, I really want to get out of here. I don't want to come back for 2 semesters." And they said, "You can't do it." And I said, "How about this? How about I make my schedule and we see how it goes?" And they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll let you do that." So there was a time period that third semester I was there. I had 27 credit hours. I was in class from 8 a.m. till 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. on Tuesdays. But, I got the best grades I had in business school. I persevered. I got out, and I didn't get a job at Wachovia Securities, but I managed to graduate with 66 credit hours in, 3 semesters. So, not many people are going to take 27 credit hours to get out of school early. That's just who I am.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think when you just said, like, I wake up early, I go to bed early, I'm tired. I don't like, I guess I learned that through wrestling. And then I just learned that that's okay. Like, people are afraid of that. They're afraid. Everybody's afraid. So you being a coach, those kids are probably scared. Like, man, this wake up early. I know it's a very popular thing for the football team to have 6 a.m. Lifts in the morning. That's something probably that's, scaring them. Like, people are afraid of hard work. And, I moved to a town where it's really weird. Like, the wrestling team gets killed every year. The football team used to be good, and people are kind of stuck in those ways. And even the parents in the area are always like, he needs a break. Like, how does somebody need a break? They're only working out like 3 times a week for an hour. What would you say if you were in front of, a crowded room of, people from age 15 to 25, and you had a few minutes to give them, some Jake Zweig words of wisdom? What would you say to, this 15 to 25-year-old crowd out there?
I tell all my people, I've been doing some motivational speaking, and I've been doing some consulting on leadership. And, I got some great leadership stories, but I tell everybody the same thing. If you're comfortable, then you're not doing what you need to do. You got to learn to be uncomfortable. You got to learn to live uncomfortable. I tell everybody, I was out of coaching a year ago, 2 years ago now, and so I had to take the first thing smoking, and I got lucky that I found a great job up here at Findlay. But, I had to move my family up here on my own penny. I'm not making very much money in Division II coaching right now.
Yep.
We're living in a house that, in my mind isn't where I should be living. But you know what? I'm going to do what I got to do. And my kids are young, and I think it helps them.
Yes.
Right? They're not going to grow up in a life of privilege, or if they do, they're not going to know about it. And so, we got everything we need, but we don't have a lot of extra laying around. And that's what, today's youth don't get. They see Kim Kardashian with a TV show and a video game making, $15 million a month. They don't understand that, she was already made. Her dad's Bruce Jenner, like it's already a made situation. Unless your dad's, I tell my kids all the time, unless your dad's Donald Trump, Bill Gates, you're going to have to work for everything you got, because you don't have somebody that can just hand you the keys to the Rolls Royce and say, hey, don't wreck it.
So everybody knows this. Like, I always tell people, I go, when I go to these wrestling clubs and the coaches are kind of like preaching, I go, how many of you here, you never heard that you're supposed to work hard? They all know. I go, how many of you never heard you're not supposed to do all your schoolwork? I go, you all know. So you know what it takes. Now you just got to decide whether you want to do it or whether you're happy with being good enough. And, man, I hate that good enough crap.
Yeah, so I tell my guys, if people aren't calling you crazy, you're not doing enough. And like, everybody in my town would be like, yo, he's crazy. But see, I had 3 friends that were the crazy people in their towns. And between us, we won 6 state championships wrestling.
Right.
right? And so, yeah, I was the crazy guy in town. Yeah, I was the guy that ran 12 miles on Sundays. Yeah, I was the guy that would, run around town like a madman running. But at the end of the day, I knew I was going somewhere, right? Like when I studied for the GMAT for 4 hours a day for 6 months so I could get into a great business school, and people were like, yo, what are you doing? I'm like, look, I'm studying, man. I was in the middle of the SEAL teams doing a workup. I'm working 12 hours a day, going to the library, studying all night, and then going back to work. That's what I had to do to get where I wanted to go, and that's the thing about today's youth. You find some good ones, but for the most part, they've got to be trained how to work hard. And I mean, I say it all the time. They're either going to learn how to work hard or they're going to go home. They don't have no choice because we're not going to not work hard here.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the only way to make things happen if you want to get to
Yep.
the top. That's cool to hear how you just like you're just taking every lesson in life and you just keep applying it to the next level. It seems like the thing that keeps a man going is you're climbing. You're never like, I'm good enough. I mean, you could have been good enough when you finished the SEAL teams and consulting, and then you got a coaching job at one of the universities. You could have been good enough there, but it's like, the hard life is the good life. And I know that sounds crazy, but like you just said, the people that are doing the crazy stuff are the people that are changing the world. So
And it's tough because we always hear you don't know how close you are until you get there.
yeah,
I could be 5 years away from a great job. I could be 5 minutes away. And you don't know until you get there, and that's the whole thing. At some point, I'm gonna have to stop making the money I'm making, right? But it ain't today, and it's not tomorrow, and it's not next week. So I got at least a couple more years to burn this thing at both ends to try to get where I want to go. And when I get there, it'll be that much better, and I'll appreciate it that much more.
yeah,
And that's the whole thing. I mean, shoot, it took me 7 years to get to the SEAL team. 7. I mean, I had to work on a ship. I worked 120 hours on a ship to get my surface warfare qualification in 6 months because I had to make the first lateral transfer board in the SEALs or I'd be on my ship for 4 years. So I worked 120 hours a week. Do the math. I didn't have any days off. My days off, my day off was sleeping in on Sunday and going to work at 12 o'clock. That was my day off. I worked all day Saturday, all the way up until the end. And then, I crushed it. I got my qualification. I got signed off in 3 months. I was the first person in class of 95 to have their SWOPID by almost 6 months. It normally takes 18 to 24 months. I did the whole thing in 3.5 months, because I wanted to. I set my mind to it. And then I developed a solid plan to do it. That's the other thing. I always have a great plan. And I got a couple contingency plans with that. Like the whole writing an essay. I wanted to be able to learn how to write. I started practicing writing. It ain't going to work. Got to scrap that plan. Let's go to plan B, memorize it.
right.
And, life is no different than that. You're going to have a plan. Right now I've got a plan. I've turned down some great opportunities, man. I turned down some really, really, really big financial opportunities while I've been in this game of coaching. And, like I always say, if you got enough education, you're always going to have opportunities. I don't see any of my opportunities going away because I spent another couple of years in coaching. And when I make it in coaching, it'll be that much sweeter because then everybody will just be laughing at me. But like I've had a couple movie opportunities. I got the TV show on Discovery Channel.
Couple TV shows you've been on.
Yeah, everybody wants me on TV, but there's a purpose behind it. And the purpose behind the TV show is I'm going to get a head coaching job, and then I'm going to have my own TV show around that football program.
Right. I've heard you.
Yeah. So, everything fits into the plan. Now, a lot of people can't see the plan. They think it's just a big smoky haze that I run around like a wild man in the middle of. But there's a massive plan.
Strategic.
Yeah. So when it all goes down, you talk about the hater nation. I love the hater nation because they, I think they hate me so bad because I always succeed, and they hate it. And like I got a bunch of guys. I got some guys in this business that aren't real fans of me,
right?
Because they don't think that a guy with an MBA from the Naval Academy should be coaching football. They don't, and it is what it is. Wait till I get a TV show and I'm rolling downhill with the best recruits in the country because I'm on TV every day. You know, and my kids are on TV every day, and the opportunities that the kids are going to get, and the university's going to get, you know. I'm talking about bringing the university $20 million worth of free marketing a year and countless endorsement deals. You know, I don't care where I go, Division II, Division III, 1AA, Division I as a head coach. When I hit it and get this TV show rolling, it's over.
Why? What do you think's important about having a TV show with a football team and you coaching? Is it so you could spread this message in a much more obviously like a deeper manner, like people tuning in? And I mean, people get inspired by TV, right? Or they,
Yeah.
but what's on TV now is, you know, a lot like the things that make TV are the dramatic, like these reality TVs are a lot of drama. Whereas I think it would be awesome if they showed like, I guess it was Discovery years ago. Were you in that Buds class 2, 3, 4 that they put on TV? You
That's my guy, Travis Lively.
right, Lively.
Yeah, my TV guy is Travis Lively. You know, and I say it like this. Having a TV show for a football program is a game changer. A lot of people, you know, they laugh at me and they can't see it, but, you know, it's once again, it's an out-of-box approach, right? How can I beat everybody at their own game on the same field? Well, you know, my business is 80% recruiting. And we just talked about the kids today, very vain, very social media driven. So now I'm out there recruiting with the TV show. I experienced it. I was on TV on Discovery Channel at Incarnate Word recruiting. I signed 3 2-star kids that I shouldn't have had any chance of signing. But shoot, I go in their house on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock and say, hey, let's turn on Discovery. They're like, oh, coach, that's you. I said, hey, man, that's how we do it up here at Incarnate Word. You know, and I'll be the first one to say it. The impact it's going to have on the school is absolutely monumental. So we saw it at Incarnate Word. We saw a 40% increase in applications just over the time span that the TV show was on. We saw the website go from 5,000 hits a day to 35,000 hits a day. We saw, you know, the acceptance rate and the admissions enrollment go up. Everything that I said it would do happened by putting the brand Incarnate Word on the TV show. Now I'm talking about making the TV show that university, whether it be Austin Peay, you know, Southern Illinois, New Hampshire,
Rutgers,
you know, Miami, you name the program, and unless it's a Texas or, you know, Alabama, one of the big boys, but shoot, even Notre Dame is using it. And I know for a fact none of those guys are using it like they really should.
Right.
Right? Because I'm talking about an all-encompassing, all-access TV show that lets you see college football for what it is. And, you know, now I got TV stars. Because like Nate Harris, my kid on the Finley team, is made for TV. I put Nate Harris on TV. Nate Harris, at the worst, is getting his own TV show. And that TV show is going to help us in the long run, right? Because now every kid I go in to see, I say, hey, you know, they're like, holy shoot, you're at, you know, let's say University of Miami. You guys are, you know, you got the Boys of Fall on TV. I saw Nate Harris with his own TV show. I'm coming, coach. You know, and it is what it is. I'm going to win a national championship in football. I'm going to do it my way. You know, it's going to be TV show. You know, I want to parachute into a game. And I want my whole football team to parachute into the game. We're going to ride helicopters around. You know, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be different. We're going to be on TV. And, you know, we're going to run a disciplined program. Every place I've been, every place I've had my hands on, there's one thing: incredibly disciplined, play violently hard, and win. That's what we do. When I was in Incarnate Word, we had some of the top special teams in the country. My 2 outside linebackers, you know, finished first and second tackling, and then they got hurt. You know, so it's going to be the same thing, but it comes back to, you look at my whole body of work across life, it's always been that way. You know, I go to the Naval Academy, and my teacher said, you're never going to graduate, you can't read. I laughed at him, right? Didn't take any reading or writing courses unless it was in summer school. So I went to summer school all summer to take my reading and writing classes when I could just dedicate all my time to reading and writing. And, you know, I passed them with C's and D's. But then I took all the hard stuff during the semester, calculus, physics, chemistry, and got A's and B's and crushed it, right? There's a method to the madness. And, you know, the TV show aspect of it is just one of the one of the little nuggets that when I become a head coach, people are going to be like, man, the Hater Nation's going to come out full force. I hate that guy.
Well, if did you ever hear that audio clip where the guy calls into Howard Stern and he's like, I need to give you feedback. Did you hear that audio clip?
I didn't hear that.
Oh, he's like, your feedback's irrelevant. I'll send it to you. You'll laugh.
My favorite thing about Howard Stern, it's the best thing I live by, right? He got 9 million listeners a day, right? 3 million followers who love Howard Stern. They listen for an hour a day roughly, okay? He's got 6 million people that hate him. They listen for 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay? The point is he got 9 million listeners, and that's what it's about, and life has become a popularity contest in today's age. Everybody wants to win the press conference. Everybody wants to win the social media conference. But at the end of the day, in football, it's about winning games. It's about graduating your kids, and it's about building champions for life. Because at the end of the day, no one's playing football forever. I mean, Peyton Manning just lost his job last night to a rookie that came out, Osweiler came out slinging that rock yesterday, and he's done now. He just beat the Patriots. It's going to be hard pressed for him to come off that field now, especially with Peyton Manning being the way he is.
Right.
So, I liken it to the good thing about being a human is we're not lions. The young lions aren't going to come and kill us when our time is over. We're just going to kind of go out the pasture and be quiet. But my time hasn't come yet. We're going to like the TV show. I just can't wait. I can't wait until I can not have to worry about all these other things. Coach football, recruit the best kids in the country, and just lay waste to the football landscape.
Yeah, well, they say when I had asked one of the top D1 wrestling coaches, he said, the real critical reason behind the success of this program is goes, I recruit great athletes. And then a buddy of mine said he was speaking with a top lacrosse coach at the D1 level, and he said, I never recruit a kid who comes from a losing record, a losing team, because he's used to losing. He thinks it's okay to lose. He's been taught, to blame other people for his losing. So at that D1 level, like it's, and I see that, like if we don't intercept this younger generation and teach them, like, listen, be a bad mofo, like go out and attack. Like it's okay to work and to, be a savage and to just go for it. If we don't intercept that, if we don't teach them that at the younger age, then the 15-year-old is the same person when he's 45. He's still okay with the good enough job. He's, I say they just become clock punchers. They're okay with going to work, doing just what's under the job description. So I'm big in like getting to that younger crowd. And it sounds like your message is the hard life is the good life, and the hard work, hard way is the way. The obstacle is the way.
I tell everybody, unless your dad's Donald Trump, I mean, you ain't got billions sitting in the bank, you're not gonna have it easy. And I tell everybody, like, I could live the easy life right now. I choose not to. It's not necessarily. I'm a very goal-driven individual. I set goals, I achieve goals, but you got to make sacrifices to achieve those goals. It doesn't come free of charge. I don't just get to sit in my seat and have, D1 job with a $200,000 salary rain down on me. I mean, I'm fighting for everything I got in this business right now.
Right.
So, it's all part of the plan. I just continue to get better every day. When I get there, I'll be good enough and I'll kill it. So, it's no different. If I come out of this, like, my wife, when we first got married, she's like, man, you work a lot. And she's like, you thought about not working so much? I said, nah. I said, I'm not a 9-to-5 type of guy. I'm a 12-to-12 type of guy. I work half days every day. That's 12 hours. So, just how it is. You don't get nowhere in life unless you put the work in.
Yeah. What there's a lot of I don't think you have a website, but a lot of people could kind of pull up clips of your shows on YouTube to learn a lot of your dedication, your intensity. There's interviews on Soft Rep Radio that they could Google. It's on SoundCloud and iTunes. Where else could people look you up? And I'll link it up for those of you listening at ZachEvanesh.com which is undergroundstrength.tv. I'll link up your Instagram, your Twitter. Anything else that I should be linking up where people could kind of look you up?
I mean, I tell everybody the same thing. I'm real easy to find because if you type my name in, there ain't but 2 or 3 of us in the country. So, and I'm open. I talk to people.
Yep.
I met a girl a young lady on the airplane up at Babson University. She had her stuff together, but she needed a little bit of help. Just contact me. I don't have no problem. I mean, I coach people for a living. That's what I do. And so, my website, I just use Facebook right now. It's easy. I don't have to manage it.
Yep.
JakeZweig.com is out there, but, I don't manage that. I don't have time for all that
Right.
other stuff right now. I'm trying to move up this coaching ladder. I've done what I need to do in the TV. Discovery Channel's on the hook to, float my boat. Should I get a head coaching job? So, right now, I mean, if you Google me, you go read any number of bios and see where I'm at. University of Findlay's bio. The Discovery Channel bios are out there. I mean,
I'll link it up. I'll link everything up, and then as things progress for you, maybe down the road, we'll crush a part 2. And that's it for everybody listening. Make sure that you share this. Yeah, go for it, Jake.
Zach, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
We got to give our plug to troopsdirect.org.
Yes.
So my guys at troopsdirect.org, they're sending much-needed supplies and EOTech sites and, vests and stuff to our troops overseas that are in the fight. And trust me when I say this, not everybody in the fight's got everything they need to win. And Troops Direct is ran by a couple of guys. They're awesome. Hook one of my buddies up big time. Go check them out, troopsdirect.org.
Cool, we'll do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, all right, so we'll probably try to do something cool. We did a really good fundraiser out of the gym and blended it online for the Navy SEAL Foundation and troopsdirect.org. We'll link that up, and maybe if those guys want to reach out to me, we could do an interview with them. I love hearing and just supporting the military. It's so, I live in New Jersey, so when 9/11 happened, I'm about 45 minutes from New York City, and that just changed the way I look at military. It just, it just blew. And what's so weird is I come from Israel, and whenever I would go to Israel, like you hear the fighter jets flying, you see everybody, you go to the mall and there's just like dudes with their machine guns on their back. It's just so normal. But then when it happened here, it just threw me for a loop. And then being a dad, I'm so grateful for the veterans. We want to do everything we can. So it's a lot, man. And of course, thank you for your service. It's just, I don't know. I always say my words and saying thank you. It sucks. It's like it just can't do justice. So we're gonna do something cool for the Troops Direct and make sure we do this up right. So everybody, thanks for listening, and reach out to Jake. I'll link him up on Instagram and Twitter. Hit him up, and let's support Troops Direct. And that's it, man. This was awesome. Talk to everybody later.